Hi everybody, welcome. If you've just arrived, we'll kick off in a minute or two. Just if you are on the line, can someone just give me a thumbs up if the audio and video is okay? Great, thank you. So you should be able to see me, see the slide and hear the audio okay. Thank you very much to those people. Yeah, like I said, we'll just kick off in a minute. So just waiting for people to arrive and then we'll get started. And again, just while we're waiting for others to join us, we're expecting a few more. Just as you can see on the screen there, feel free to drop into chat, into the group chat, about why you think networking is important, just to get us moving today. So again, just feel free to drop into chat just prior to kicking off. Why do you think networking is important? Just drop something into chat, share your thoughts. We'll get you involved today, so don't be shy. Okay, we're right on 3 o'clock. So to be respectful for those of you who have joined us on time, we're going to make a start, and I'll just keep an eye on the waiting room because there's likely to be people sort of trickling in as well. So hello and welcome. Thanks for turning up today. I hope you've enjoyed this series put on by Study New South Wales with the Employability Program. We'll get to the proper introduction of that program and where this fits in that process in a second, but just wanted to welcome you all, to thank you all for coming, and I'm really hoping that you've enjoyed the sessions being run by various organisations. We've really enjoyed our couple that we've done already, and this is our third in our series, so I'm looking forward to today as well. So just to kind of kick things off with, today we're talking about networking, and importantly, networking your way to a job. So if you haven't attended one of the sessions that we have run and that I've run recently in this series, is that we will get you involved today. So this is not designed to be a lecture, not designed for you to sit back and kind of watch and make some notes, although you can do that as well, but really designed to get you involved and sharing. So the best way that you can do that is, we'll be having a chat about a few different things, giving you some scenarios, getting you to kind of talk about a few things. So, so do get involved, because I think the more involved you get, the more you'll take out of this as well. So as we said just before, that this is part of the Study New South Wales program, and called Networking Your Way to a Job, obviously today, and we're going to be going for an hour. So looking forward to this content. Just very quickly, just prior to kicking off, we being Readygrad, our business, we are solely involved in the area of graduate employability. That's what we do. That's my background. I've worked in graduate recruitment development for a long time, and this kind of content is definitely around, we think like a student, how can we think like an employee, and what are some skills and hints and tips that we can give you along the way. So The idea of this session, along with the other ones that we run, is really sort of putting you in the mind of an employer, and importantly a graduate employer, and trying to give you some insight into sort of how and why these things matter and why they make sense as well. So enough about us. We'll keep moving. So we're talking about the networking for success today. We're going to get you to kind of reflect on your own networking strategy and start to reflect about the things that you can be doing to make you more, a better networker and better be prepared to talk to employers in a meaningful way. We're going to also cover a little bit about what we call your online footprint. So, where are you present online, and how does that impact your ability to market yourself in a professional way? So it obviously can be a great thing, but also, just some things we need to be aware of with our online footprint being our personal brand in an online world as well. So we're going to talk briefly about that too. So this will be fairly quick fire. We've only got an hour together today, so we'll move through things reasonably quickly, but definitely some time to talk with each other and discuss some things as well. So if we had to think about, just to kick things off, we know that the idea of the overall communication style of ourselves is really important in this world of networking. But I wanted to really highlight the importance of non-verbal communication. As you can see there's a really strong, and this is fact. It's not something that we've made up here, but in a whole of communication sense, what we know about us as human beings is that 55% of the things that we, how we're sort of viewed or how we demonstrate ourselves in a communicative way is about visual signs, meaning the things that we don't say. So more about gesture, posture and stance, these body language kind of things. So if you all think of the last interview you went for, whether it's, the last assessment centre you went to, a networking event, importantly, those kind of things, a lot of times we're being judged on not the things we say, but the way that we hold ourselves, the way that we, what we call non-verbal communication styles. So I just want us to be really aware of that today and sort of really reflect on how you come across in a professional setting as well. Vocal signals are 38%, as you can see. In the actual words we say, only 7% makes up our total sort of communication self. So I think that's really insightful and probably not something that we, that we thought would be the case. We'd probably segment that full circle up a little bit differently if we thought about what, the way that we've done it before. So I just want us to be really aware of, the next time you interact, this world of networking in a professional setting, is that your visuals, the visual signals, so in other words, the non-verbal communication style of yours is definitely on show and definitely being, picked up by other people. So be really aware of that. First impressions is a huge, I think we all know this, but the idea of, first impressions is a really important factor in any kind of professional meeting, whether that's an interview, whether it's a networking event, industry evening through a university, whatever it is, first impressions really count for a lot. So what can we be doing? Open gesturing, this whole idea of active listening, so nodding and being really receptive to what's being said. Not to interrupt. I'm sure we all know that we've all got friends, someone we can think of that we know that's kind of an interrupter. That's what we're aiming not to be, is not to interrupt, but just to allow people to, talk and actively listen. The other is to slow down your actions and show confidence. I think the more measured you can be, the more measured you come across, the more professional that can be. Just avoid doing things with your hands. I think a lot of us struggle with that sometimes. I know I do. The idea of, especially if we're nervous or anxious, we tend to move our, hands and touch our face or, whatever it is. So just be aware of that. Handshake is always an important thing. Practice it with your friends is something we often say is, how would you handshake in a professional setting? You don't want to go really gentle. It needs to be confident, but then not too strong as well. Eye contact and smiling, these are all these non-verbal things that are really important. Be aware of your appearance, how you dress, rapport building techniques. So how can you kind of interact in a way that builds a relationship with someone quite early? So I'll just leave that up there on screen for a minute. I think there's some really good tips in there about, what makes a real big difference in a first meeting or a first impression. So any questions or comments about those or about what we've covered so far? All good? Don't worry, I'll get you to be involved a bit more in a minute. So hopefully that sort of sets the scene for today about what we're talking about. So I want you to, just on the importance of us all interacting today. So I'm going to leave that up. So I'm pretty sure you can interact with this. I'm hoping the settings are okay on this. But I just want you to look at that, and I want you to think about, if you're able to annotate, in other words, in your Zoom menu, there should be an option for you to annotate. It's a pen icon. And if you can work out the arrow, I want you just to look at those three options on screen, and I want you to circle or point to what you believe is the most important to you. So why do we network? I want you to have a look at those three and just put an arrow on the screen for yourself if you're able to. Can anyone do that for us? There you go, someone's worked it out, well done. Exactly like that. So go to annotate, yep, circle's fine. You can do that if you want to. Under annotate, there is an arrow. So yep, perfect. We've got a few arrows going on. By the way, there's no right answer to this. It's whatever you think. A lot of people are saying to broaden our knowledge. A lot of people are saying professional development. There's lots of squiggly arrows going on. Yep. If you can work it out, well done. Doesn't matter if you circle or whatever, that's fine. No problem. Interesting. A lot of people are saying professional development. Not many people are saying the intent of getting a job. I would have thought that would be the most popular, to be honest. But again, there's no right or wrong with this. I think what we all agree is that there's different reasons as to why we network, and all of these might form part of your, part of your strategy individually. So your personal angle to market. But I think what it confirms is that we all use networking for a range of different things. It's not just to get a job. It's not just for our professional development and not just to increase our knowledge, but it can be a range of all those things. So that's a good start. So thank you. Thanks for that. And I think if we can, if you're able to remove I can probably get rid of those marks on the screen if you need me to. If you can just remove your, the annotations that you've made, that's great. But again, I just wanted to show that it can be a bit of a sort of different reasons for different people. Okay. If you're able to remove your annotation, that would be great. I can clear it. There we go. Okay. So what I want us to do is we're going to look at some different scenarios around networking. So before we get to that first one, we're going to look at 3 different scenarios here. And what I'm going to be doing is breaking them up into groups so you can have a quick discussion about each of them. What I'm going to show you is 3 different angles to, real networking scenarios where there's different things at play. almost like mini case studies. And I want you all to have a chat with people in your group, just very quickly and quite informally, just about what your approach would be. In other words, what you would do, what to look out for, because they throw up very different, the scenarios throw up very different kind of ways that you'd interact, whether it's casual or formal or whatever it is. So can we all do that? Does that make sense? I'm going to be breaking you out into small groups, into rooms on Zoom. And then I'm going to maybe just ask a few of you to share. So really it's just a discussion around each of the three scenarios. So first one, just want you to, it might be worth taking, if you can take a screenshot or a photo of that, just so when you're in your group, you can, you know what you're talking about, because when you go to breakout rooms, you won't have that there. So just have a read of that. And before I break you out into rooms to discuss, are we all clear on what's happening here? So this is just a, you know, a real life scenario. It happens reasonably regularly. Are there any questions about this? So what I would say about this scenario is that, again, this is a fairly standard sort of, you know, a standard social situation. The important thing is we know that we need to get some connection with this person. Ideally, we want to make an impression, but it's more about how do we go about it and what do we watch out for. Does that make sense? So anyone got any questions about that? Good. Okay, I'm going to break you out into rooms. I'll give you about 4 or 5 minutes, have a quick chat, and then I'll bring you back in and we'll have a discussion about it. So 1, 2, 3, and you should have a link. Hi there, if you've just joined us, we're just in a breakout room. So maybe just sit tight while we come back from that first breakout room activity. Okay, we'll just wait for everyone to return and then we'll keep moving. Okay, we should have everyone back now. So hopefully you had a good conversation with your group. Does anyone want to maybe switch their mic on and tell us what your group came up with? Any ideas?
Well, I'm from group number 10, and we came up with mostly the don't. That is, don't just stand there and like not make eye contact and like not say anything. Don't be just a bystander. If you can actually take part in that conversation, add something to the conversation, that's great. But don't be just a awkward bystander. That will be the worst case scenario.
Yeah, and it's Pranay, is it? I think. Yeah. So thank you. That's
Yes.
it's really good, and I think it's a great thing for all of us to remember. Yes, that's right. You don't want to be sort of standing off to the side and not having any impact at all. That's great. So anything else? Anyone else had someone?
I don't remember the group number, sorry, but we discussed that we would wait for that person to finish their conversation with the people they are having, and then we might try to approach them. Or we could ask our friends to introduce us on our behalf, like the friend has invited both of us, he knows the manager.
Yeah. Sorry, your audio is breaking up a bit. I don't know if it is for everybody else, but the audio is coming through a little bit patchy.
Audio is not good.
No, so
Yeah,
maybe, sorry, I caught some of that, but maybe if you could just drop that into chat, might be helpful.
Is it audible now?
No.
No, sorry. It's the danger of Zoom with microphones, isn't it? Unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's okay. If you maybe just while someone else is talking, if you want to drop your main thoughts into the chat, that would be helpful. But thank you for speaking up. Anyone else? Maybe one more volunteer.
Well, we in our group actually figured out a problem that might occur in such situations.
Yep.
What if the relevant person, because usually people at parties don't like to talk about work stuff, right? So what if the person actually is not interested in our conversation about him working in that sort of a company, and how do we like go ahead with the conversation without pestering him of our interest in our company?
Yeah, it's a very good
Great.
point raised, and I think that's that's exactly where I wanted to get to with this this scenario. So maybe just if you can switch your mic off. I'm getting some there's just some feedback on the audio. That's better. Perfect. Maybe just if everyone can just mute their microphone, that would be good. It just seems to be echoing a little bit at my end. For those, so thank you for that input. That's exactly right. So what we're looking at here is a scenario where this person, it's not a work event. Can I just get anyone who's not on mute just to mute yourself, please? I've just done it. Okay. But do speak up if you've got something to share. So just on that point, we did get that. I think it was Syed. Thank you for sharing that. That's really helpful, and you're absolutely right. So keep in mind with this scenario, the person here, and I've been in this situation where I've been the employer at this barbecue. So I've kind of been on the other end of this before as an employer. So the key thing here is this, you're right, this is a casual gathering. It's not a work-related event. So we've got to be really sensitive to the person's space and time and all of that. They're there to have a good time as well. However, there's obviously a way that we can connect with this person that's not going to be too obtrusive, and that would be the word that I would use. So make a connection, but see if there's a follow-up opportunity. So the way that you might go about it, and there's probably a few ways to do it, is to talk to your friend who's invited you. That's the connection for the event, right? So speak to your friend and say, hey, would you mind introducing me to, this friend of yours who's, this important recruiter person that I might want to talk to? Get them to introduce you actively, but maybe the connection is, if you catch them, hey, look, I'm very aware this is a casual, environment. Would you mind if I followed you up, and how would you like me to contact you? They're likely to say, here's my mobile number, here's my email, here's my card, whatever it is. Give me a call. Yeah, your friends told me about you. Give me a call on Monday and let's have a conversation. So would we agree that that's probably the best way to be sensitive, to understand that it's their own time, but to get some kind of outcome? Do we agree that would be the right way to go? Yes?
Yeah, I think it might be.
Yep. So you're right, Said. Thank you for sharing that, because that's exactly what we want to get to. So the key there, personal, casual gathering, they're there for their personal enjoyment. So just to be very sensitive of their time, but also, as the first person said, don't lose the opportunity. So don't let that evening or afternoon go by without making some kind of introduction. So whether it's just a, hey, hello, I'm so-and-so. I don't want to waste your time now, but I'm really keen to follow up with you. You'd often find that people are quite reasonable about that. So any other questions or comments about that one? Good. Happy with that? Okay, we've got number 2. Again, number 2. If you've got again, if you want to take a screenshot or a photo of that, just so you've got the info when you go to your breakout rooms, just have a read of this one. Okay, so quite simple and quite realistic. This happens all the time. Are there any questions, or is that quite clear? I think it should be quite clear to everybody what's happening here. I want you to talk about your approach, what you think would work, or how we should approach it. Again, I'll put you into breakout rooms. I want you to just have a chat for 4 or 5 minutes. I want you to come back and share what you've come up with. So I'm going to open all rooms again. We've had a couple of new people, so I'm just going to get you to join other rooms. Okay, we're just waiting for everyone to come back from the room. So another 20 seconds or so, and we'll have a quick discussion about this one. Okay, so we should all be back now. So what do we think about this one? Does someone want to kick off with what their thoughts are and how to approach this?
Yeah, sure, if I may.
Yes.
Yeah, so what my breakout room came up with was to actually enter the conversation, try to enter the conversation without disrespecting someone, interrupting. You don't have to necessarily interrupt someone. You can just appreciate their point and build up your own point, enter your own idea without being disrespectful.
Yep. Yeah, perfect. That's definitely one thing to consider. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah.
And second would be to actually be very formal. It's a very professional setting. So just ask, can I join the conversation? I have something to add. That is like very, very professional and very polite way to do that.
Yep. Yeah, that's great. And you picked on an important point there in join in the conversation, right? Rather than sort of hold back and not get involved or sort of make them speak all over again about answering the same questions, which I'll come back to because I want to give you the employer point of view here on this as well. So thank you, Pranay. Anyone else want to share anything they came up with that was different?
What do you think about an elevator pitch? I mean, do we necessarily need to prepare some sort of an elevator pitch to like interact with him, or because it's such a short space of time, and usually there are a lot of people already waiting for him to talk to, right? So what do you think about that?
Yeah, because I don't know if you're in. We've talked about elevator pitch in one of the earlier sessions, so I'm a big fan of elevator pitches, and for you all to have one that's compelling and genuine. But you're right, this is probably not the right environment. Just to launch into an elevator pitch is probably not the right environment here. More just because of the noise going on in the space and the time that everyone has. You've got a very short window to capture some attention. So I would agree that you probably wouldn't use a full kind of pre-prepared elevator pitch in this setting. But I want to give you some employer insights in a second. Is there any other thoughts on this? Any other group that talked about this? I think Pranay and Syed are my two best friends today. They're the ones that are speaking up, so thank you for that. So just let me give you, just in the interest of time, I'll just give you a bit of insight to this. So again, I've been on the employer side of this for a long time, and I've turned up to career fairs where there's thousands of people mingling and everything. So it's a very noisy, very busy environment. Do you want to create an impression? Of course we do, but again, it's about it is a professional environment, which someone mentioned before. So they're there to speak to you. The difference between this and the casual sort of, party, or the casual barbecue or the casual dinner party scenario, is that employers are absolutely there to speak to you. So don't be shy is the first thing. I just wanted to pick up, I think it was on Syed's point, which was a really good one, which is to include yourself in the conversation. What I mean by that is, instead of waiting back until you get a free moment with the employer representative and then ask you questions or talk to them about whatever you want to, it's likely that, and I know this from first-hand experience, is that the questions are very much the same. What kind of jobs do you have? Where are they located? Do you take this kind of degree type? What's the kind of professional development look like in this business, et cetera, right? They're the standard questions, which aren't wrong to ask, by the way. But a great way is, as someone mentioned before, is to jump in on someone else's conversation. So it shows the employer that you are wanting to save them some time about not going again with the same response to every single question. So, jump in, even say something like, you'll hear them talking to 3 or 4 people. Hey, do you mind if I just jump in and have a listen? Of course, yeah, come on in and have a listen. then when everyone else gets their questions answered, you're still there and can ask a question, you know, beyond that time. So that's how I would say to do it. You would also be very surprised how, especially early on or late in a career fair or a career expo where there's less people around, is that students will often feel a bit nervous about approaching you. Be absolutely bold. They're there to speak to you. I would walk straight up and have a conversation. The things that employers really, really like, and the things that are refreshing for an employer, an environment like this, is if you can walk up and say, hey, you know, I know a bit about, you know, whatever your company name is, ABC company. I know that you've got operations in, you know, in all states in Australia and overseas, or, you know, whatever it is. To be able to share that you've done a bit of research is, I think, a really great rapport building skill. So just think about that. Think about your approach. No, I wouldn't necessarily launch into a full elevator pitch purely because you don't necessarily have the time. If you're one-on-one with an employer and they say, oh, can you tell me more about yourself, then maybe. But yeah, again, keep it quite condensed and quite simple. Does that help? So be sure that the impact that you want to leave is the right one. That's the important thing. Okay. Does that help? Hopefully that clears that up a little bit. Any questions on that one? No, we're all good?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Last one. So we're going to do the same one, but this time a bit different. And again, these three scenarios are very, very common. They're the kind of things that happen all the time. So just read this one. This is a cocktail networking event or an industry evening, you might want to call it. Okay, I'm going to break you out into rooms. Any questions about this scenario? All make sense? So again, I want you to think
All
about
good.
the different way that you would approach this. So what do we need to be mindful of, and how do we get involved? How do we engage and create an impression? So I'll break you out. Have a quick chat 4 or 5 minutes and I'll bring you back. Okay, we're just waiting for everyone to come back and then we'll talk about this scenario. Okay, we should have everyone back now. Don't know if that's a question. Has someone got their hand up? Is there a question? Is it?
I'd like to start if my audio is okay.
Yes, sure. Go for it. Thank you.
All right, thank God. Okay, so our team was discussing that food is not the priority, food or alcohol. So we would probably try to get in our word or talk or have some conversation first, and then focus on the other things because the time is definitely limited. And for the dress code, since it's a semi-formal setting, so we were thinking something between casual and formal, not completely either way.
Yep. Yeah, great. Yep, very good. Yep, and thank you. There are definitely some things to be aware of. I want to pick up on your first point about, and that's why we've got the reminder down the bottom. There'll commonly be food and alcohol served, so don't treat it like a free for all. It's not a university party. It's a professional environment. So I often say, don't go to a place like that hungry or expecting to get free drinks. You know what I mean? It's very much a work-related event where you need to kind of make the best impression you can. And the other thing, just in a practical sense, if you've got your hands full of food or drinks, it's much harder to interact and shake hands and things like that. So I realized the last year or so we haven't had things like physical networking events for obvious reasons, but it's very, very timely that we get this reminder because those things are starting to happen again. So thank you for that input. That's definitely some good tips there. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'd like to put something in.
Yes.
Yeah, so if you know the three employers representatives that are there that night, if you already know that, like before coming to the event, do your research them out, have their career trajectory, have their content that they put on LinkedIn or be it social media, and have some conversation topics to get the conversation going.
Yep. Yeah, great. Pranay, I like your thinking. Very good. Yep, that's
And
exactly.
last but not the least, it's not exactly a dinner party. So like I completely agree to Aishwarya's point that it's not a dinner party. You're there to network. So just like have a beer. It's like it makes you look casual, but don't lose your composure. Like
Yep, exactly right. Absolutely.
be courteous. Yeah.
Yeah, just on that too, Pranay, I don't know if you've got another thought on this, but what's everyone's opinion on, I know this happens to me, I tend to find someone I like and I get on with well at a networking event like this, and you tend to spend more time with that person rather than actively, networking to other parts of the room or to meet other people. That can be a bit of a danger. So just, I suppose, be aware of that, is don't get cornered with, especially don't just stand there and talk to your friends, because you can talk to your friends anytime. The idea is to be active, but to get involved and have, I would suggest have, 3 or 4 quite meaningful conversations. Again, employees are there to talk with you, so make the most of it and get involved. What do we feel about going up to interrupt someone else? What do we think about a group of people, an employer, 4 or 5 other students? How do we manage that situation? Any ideas?
Sorry, please go ahead.
Yep, go for it. You can speak.
All right. So usually if you're barging in on a conversation, people might think it's eavesdropping. But if it's a general conversation, if an employer is talking to 3 or 4 people regarding some general issues, then maybe if you have done your some kind of background information check, or if you have some kind of insight on that topic, then you can definitely weigh in. That would be a good way to enter the conversation.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I think, again, just to be sensitive to the other people in the room and the other people in the conversation is, sorry, everyone, I don't want to interrupt, but this is my point of view, that kind of thing. So rather than, and I know that you're not saying this, you wouldn't barge in and just start speaking, but, you get a feel for the group that's and what they're talking about. And then, do you mind if I say something, or can I say something here? Or just so you've got that courtesy and polite angle. I agree. That's it's really important. Any other comments before we move on from this one?
Yeah, but what happens in a situation where there's a group of people like passionately discussing a subject or an issue? And I mean, it happens to me very much that sometimes a group of people are particularly discussing an issue, and I would very much like to talk with one of them, but I feel like I would be barging in on their conversation because that conversation does not relate to me at all, and I don't have any idea about that conversation also. So how do I like put my word in, or do
Yeah,
you understand what I'm trying to say?
yeah, it is. I agree. It is kind of hard to do. It's not easy to do, and that's just a like a personal communication kind of challenge, right? Like that's always going to be more difficult. The options would be either wait for an option to input, or move on to another conversation somewhere else, excuse yourself, and move on to another group. What I would say is that there's some little things that you can do, I think, that are quite practical. So let's just say that I'm an employer at that event, and that was, Syed saying that's his situation, he's moved in. I might just say, excuse me, and because I'm going to get a drink or going somewhere else. You might just say, hey, do you mind if I walk with you over to that? I don't know, I'll walk with you to the bar or something like that. And you can actually have a conversation that way. It's kind of not, I don't want to say sneaky in an impolite sense or unethical sense, but sneaky in that it's a great way for you to engage with someone and have some, more one-on-one time, if that makes sense. I just wanted to share something with you all too, that because it happens so often with employers or just professionals generally at these kind of events. If you're a student and you've interacted with, again, I'll just put myself in the situation. Let's say I'm the employer in the room, and you're a student in the room, and we have build some rapport and have a good conversation. It happens so often that the student, as in you in this instance, would say, like, I'd like to connect with you. Is there a way I can connect with you beyond today? Or, I'd like to catch up with you outside of this event at some stage and, get your advice on something, whatever it is. That's quite normal, right? That's what we would expect. Usually the employer would say, yeah, of course, this is the best way to get hold of me. Here's my card, or you can connect to me on LinkedIn or whatever. So obviously then you've got an action that you can do something with. Can I just tell you that you might speak to 100 students as an employer at one of those events, or let's say even 50 students in one evening, and you'd have probably 20 of those that might say that you've invited to say, yeah, if you want to follow up with me, Phil, you're welcome to. As an ex-employer myself, so often you'd come out of those things and you might get followed up by one person or two people. In other words, students don't tend to follow up, and I think it's a real missed opportunity. So if you get the opportunity or the invitation, so yeah, like, of course you can connect with me on LinkedIn, or you can, I don't know, here's my card, and you get the option to call or email, and you get their preference based on what they would prefer. Then absolutely follow up, and do follow up, a day or two after that event, and say, this is my name, I met you at this event, I'd love to connect with you or meet up with you. Can we have a coffee somewhere? Can we, whatever, have a chat by phone, whatever it is. Be the person that follows through, because if you've got an invite, then it makes sense that you action that as well. Does that help? Does that make sense? You'd be very surprised the amount of lack of action that or follow up you get as an employer. So I think there's a perfect opportunity to kind of be better with that. Any questions about that?
So following up through email or through like phone call, or how do we do that?
Yeah, I would use it case by case. So usually when you connect with someone, if you say, I'd like to follow up with you, you'd often say, what's the best way for me to do that? Because people have their preferred ways. So it might be, oh yeah, feel free to connect to me on LinkedIn. Feel free to, here's my card, ring me on the mobile. I'm free from Wednesday, or here's my email, maybe email and let me know when you're free, or something like that. I would just get their preferred way and then use that method to contact them. Yeah. What I'm saying is so many times that in this instance, students don't follow up, and you've got the green light to be able to follow up, even if it's a LinkedIn connection the following day, is right in the introduction or right in the message. You know, I met you on last night, really enjoyed talking with you. I'd love to connect with you as you invited me to. Is there a way that we can, you know, meet up and have another conversation or something? Yeah, I think really be proactive with that, especially if you got the invitation. Okay. Hopefully that helps. And that's the good news, right? Those kind of events are built for that kind of connection. So I think be polite, but professional, know what you're there for, and make the most of a few good contacts is definitely the angle. I just want you to spend a little bit of time, just think quite quickly. We don't have lots of time for this, but just really quickly, I want you to think about your own, we call it a networking map. Think about your own potential networks and something that you haven't uncovered yet. So I'll leave that on screen. I just want you to make a couple of notes for yourself. Who is it that is in your world that you may not have followed up with or not networked with as yet? So I'll just leave you for just reflection time, just on your own, just a minute or two. Just make your own notes. Just while you are reflecting and making your own notes, I really do think the biggest missed opportunity here is this casual part-time work. I think a lot of you have, you know, work experiences that jobs that you're in where you've got opportunities to further develop and build those networks. So think about that as well, if that's you. So we'll move on from that, but again, I'd encourage you to continue to reflect on that and build that a little bit. You may want to use, this is kind of a more formal action plan. You might want to use something like that. I just think it's really important to have, you know, what are you going to do? How are you going to do it? And then when are you going to do it by? Just make yourself accountable to that. So it doesn't need to look identical to that, but that's just a format that I think works quite well. And then, you know, then you've got an actual plan of how you're going to go about it. Okay, so just continue beyond today to reflect on, you know, what is your networking map look like and how are you going to, you know, build that and continue to develop that as well. Just quickly wanted to talk about social media and your online footprint. I'm sure a bunch of you have, you know, before, and if you haven't, it's a good thing to do is just to Google yourself, because you want to be able to see what an employer would see if they Googled you. If they met you at an event last night or met you at some kind of function or an interview or whatever it is, you can guarantee that they've probably Googled you. So it's just important to be aware ongoing of that you do have an online footprint. You know, any images or videos and everything you've ever kind of had will always be on the web. So just to also encourage you to think about how do you separate social and professional. And a lot of ways people do that is, you know, LinkedIn versus say Facebook or Instagram or whatever else. So, you know, are you going to separate those and how are you going to do it is more the point. So just with, this is not about being a LinkedIn sort of specialty session, but just with something like LinkedIn, just the idea of it's not going to be the answers to all of your, you know, solve all of your problems with work. But if you're going to have a LinkedIn account, you might be just entering that world of, I don't really have a LinkedIn account and I might, you know, it's not, I haven't got many contacts or I haven't really maintained it over time. is it's again with LinkedIn or similar in a professional setting, it's not about the more contacts, the better. It's really just about having a really solid, genuine presence online. Not about having the most contacts, not about having the most work experience, but really building it over time. I think it's a really great way to keep your contacts connected over a long period of time. So don't think of it as being the only way that you can get a job, but just be aware of the etiquette around it. Versus say Facebook and Instagram or similar, which is more about just be aware of what's on there. If it's something you use socially, just know that that's accessible to everybody. So just to be, I suppose, careful and in the transition into the world of professional work. If it is in fact your transition into that area, then just to be aware of it is more the point. So I just want to go, we're not going to break out for these, but I just want to quickly cover them before we wrap up today. So if we're looking at these around more of a LinkedIn, because people often ask about LinkedIn and how do I connect or something, and I think this is in this social media world. So with that first scenario, just someone to maybe, turn your mic on and tell us what you think. What do you think about that first one? It's just even a session like this, a guest speaker or a lecture. You really enjoyed. How would we go about doing that? How would we make that work for us? What's the etiquette?
Is it possible for me to talk?
Yes, please, Grace. We haven't heard from you. We'd love you to talk. Thank you.
I have several experience of this because usually like our lecture, they will invite some of the very famous someone who work in the sociology. And so the best thing I think is when they talk about something, you react on the literature. Usually they pop up the questions. So it's better to have them to know of your opinions and they will welcome to discuss with you through the lectures. And if you be given like for or more like answers to their questions, it will be impressed in their minds. And then after the lectures, you can go to directly to see them and talk about what you may want to do in the industry. So that's a good idea, I thought.
Yeah, that's great, Grace. Perfect. Yeah, so get involved, show them that you're interested, and then the courtesy of just saying, hey, I really enjoyed your session. I'd like to, whether it's connecting to you on LinkedIn. So it's just the courtesy of that. But I really love your idea of, really getting involved and being passionate about what they're interested in as well. That's really good. So, yep, good advice for everyone. Just in the interest of time, we'll move through these. We've got a few of them for you. So what about this one? Again, I want you to think about the LinkedIn kind of courtesy or LinkedIn strategy around this. What do we do here?
If I may.
Yes.
I think the best way would be if you are going on that job advertisement, it will also give you the name of the recruiter and you would have an option of in-mail. You can actually personally mail the recruiter with your information and can have an extra dialogue with them instead of just applying. Yeah,
yep, that's a good idea, Pranay. And again, I think the key here is, it's hard to introduce yourself over something like LinkedIn because a graduate recruiter might have, someone like, say, Deloitte, for example, have 5,000 applications or, sorry, more than that, they've up to 50,000, but
easily more, yeah.
Yeah, so lots more. But so the idea here is that, you're lost in the crowd almost with this. So something personal, something that you can, ideally you've met them at something and then you can have a conversation and say, hey, I'd like to connect with you. Because again, it's not really an introductory tool. They're not likely to accept an invitation from you unless there's a point of difference. So yep, you're spot on, Pranay, that's great. The last one, and I know we have to wrap up, we're right on time. What about this one, just as a final one? Is Richard Branson going to accept a LinkedIn request from you? What do we think? Probably unlikely that someone like that would accept, So what you can do, if you all know, you can follow someone like that. So someone that you really admire in business or similar, is you can follow them because they'll have followers and you can sort of see them get their posts and reshare their posts and things like that. So that would be the way to go about doing that, as just a guide. So that's just to give you some scenarios about, in this world of social media and a professional platform like LinkedIn, how would we go about, just keep in mind the courtesy, the connection etiquette around those things is more the point. So sorry, we're just over time. So just wanted to wrap up and say, firstly, thank you. This is the final slide there. If you need to connect, do stay connected with Study New South Wales. We love being involved in this program. I think it's really helpful. Hopefully you got some great advice today and some tips. So I just want to wish you all the very best and hopefully we see you at the next session that we're running. So thanks for today and we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much. Have a great one.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.